Welcome to Bitsquare. In this video I want to go into the details of all the attack scenarios and the scamming possibilities and the protection against those. We will discuss this with the overview, which shows the basics of the trade process, and I want to try to explain in all steps what can happen and how we try to protect against those. The first important part is the collateral. As we have seen in another video about the trade process, we use a collateral, which is something like 10–20% of the trade volume. And to understand why the collateral is needed and for what it serves, the easiest way to understand it is when you imagine there is no collateral. Then in our process here, Alice would make a buy offer, Bob take this offer, and when the deposit transaction is created, Bob would have paid in 1 Bitcoin, but Alice would not have paid in anything. So Bob could lose 1 Bitcoin, or because that's locked in this 2 of 3 multisig address, and Alice has not paid anything. So when Alice is evil and she decides that she will publish here the transaction, and 1 Bitcoin of Bob is locked, but she will not continue to pay the fiat to Bob. Bob has no possibility to get back his Bitcoin. The only possibility is to contact the arbitrator to help him to pay out the Bitcoin, because after 1 week or something he has not received the money, but he will lose a lot of time. He will lose 1 week, and then he has also paid the arbitrator for his work, because the arbitrator has to find out if Bob is really honest, and he has to contact both and has to find out the truth, and the arbitrator wants some money for that, and Bob has to pay the arbitrator, so at the end he has lost some money. He will maybe get back 0.9 Bitcoin, and of course he's very disappointed. And Alice has not lost anything. There could be some additional protection mechanism that she get blocked or something, but basically she has not to lose anything, and when she creates new account, it would be a problem. So with the collateral, basically we cover we solve 2 problems. One is that Alice will not stop here, because when she stops here she will lose her collateral, and that's quite a lot of money. And the other is, in the case of arbitration, the arbitrator can take the collateral as his payment, and the dishonest has no possibility to not pay this, because that's locked in this transaction, in this multisig transaction, where the arbitrator with the other peer has the power to make the payout. It would also be another situation for Bob, also where Bob without the collateral can cheat here at the end, but I don't want to go into the details, because this one case is already enough to introduce the collateral. So collateral is one protection mechanism. Of course, the main protection mechanism is the arbitrator. The arbitrator is handled in another video where we go into all the details how the arbitration system works. I just want to cover here the limitations of the arbitration system. As the arbitration system works great for all this process what we have here, but it has a limitation. As soon the Bitcoin is paid out, the arbitrator has no power, or not much power anymore, because the funds are paid out and he cannot do anything with these locked funds anymore, because both traders has already agreed that they pay. There are 2 cases where Alice, in this case where she is doing the fiat payment, she could make a bank chargeback. We only will support bank transfer types which are known as not bank chargeback able. PayPal is known that it's very easy to make a bank chargeback. We will not support PayPal, but at the end every bank transfer is back charge able. Even if the bank are saying it's not possible, it's always a possibility to do it. And especially in the case of a stolen bank account, if Alice is a criminal and she used a stolen bank account, then the bank will make for sure a chargeback, and Bob will lose his money, what he has already received, and he has already paid out the Bitcoin to Alice. the Bitcoins are not chargeback able, so there is no way to get the Bitcoin back, but the bank will transfer the money back to the original holder of the bank transfer in case of a stolen bank account. Or if Alice was just a cheater and make a bank chargeback of her own bank account, then Bob has a lot of problems to contact the bank and to get back the money, and it will be a big problem. And the arbitration system does not help here anymore. To prevent against this kind of scams, we have basically two measurements. One is the registration, and the other is the fraud report. So in such a case, Bob would contact the arbitrator, will report this, that Alice has made the bank chargeback. He can prove it with the history on his bank account and so on. And the arbitrator will then publish all the details of Alice into this fraud report. There will be the account ID, the messaging network ID, all the bank account details. So all the private data of Alice will be published. We don't have to protect a scammer, so there's no reason to not do this. And if Alice wants to repeat a scam with this bank account, she will fail, because in the trade process there is a verification against this fraud report, and this bank account cannot be used anymore. The account ID, the messaging ID, and so on. So all unique IDs which are used in the system are impossible to use again in the trading system. So if Alice wants to repeat scams, she has to create a new, she has to register a new account. And here we come to the second point, the registration. We are encoding the bank account data into the registration transaction. That will be done in the way that the bank account data plus a secret will be hashed, and this hash will be appended to a op return statement. In this there will be one output in the registration transaction with the op return. So that's the kind of accepted way how to add data to the blockchain. And then 20 bytes of this hash will be added, and in the trade process Alice will hand over the bank account data plus the secret to the trading peer, or both will do this, and both can verify that this hash is correctly with that was stored in the blockchain. They can look up in the blockchain in the registration address, so they can be sure that the other trader is really using that bank account which was used in the registration address. It's not possible, or it's not easy to create a lot of bank accounts. When you want to create 100 bank accounts, you get suspicious for the banks and you get some problems. So you can create maybe 10 or something, but you cannot repeat it very often. So that's a protection. And another protection which is still in discussion and not sure if we use how we use it exactly is the registration fee, because the registration fee will probably be we cannot make it very high. If it would be very high, of course it would have some value, because a scammer has to pay this registration fee again, and if it's something like half a Bitcoin or so, it's quite a lot of money. But of course it will be difficult for new users, and it will be a problem for the adoption of the system. So we have to make it quite low, something like equivalent to 1 to 10 euro. But even then it's quite high for people, and the protection for a scammer is probably questionable, because a scammer who uses a stolen bank account probably will not suffer much for losing 10 euro. But the normal user who will start and want to make his first Bitcoin trades, he will probably not like to pay so much registration fee. So probably we'll use a very low registration fee, maybe just what's needed for doing this registration transaction, and just use the encoded bank account data as protection. And it's very important to understand that these data are not public. Nobody can reveal the real bank account data from that hash. It's just possible to verify when the trader is revealing his bank account data plus the secret to the other peer. The secret is important because without that, anybody who knows the bank account data, like the bank, could theoretically create these hashes and could check out the blockchain and could block then this clients when in some countries the banks are very aggressive against Bitcoin and they want to block these users. There are some fraud possibility with offer creation and with offer taking. So we use an offer fee to prevent this, because without the offer fee, Alice could create hundreds or thousands of offers, could spam the system. She could make market manipulation when she create a lot of offers with a good price for other traders, but she will not accept them at the end. These offers, they're just fake offers. Yeah, she would consume the time from the other traders. She would drive the price in one direction. So there are subtle ways to manipulate the market with such kind of stuff. So we need to have some costs with offer creation and also with the offer taking. With offer taking, there are a little bit different attack possibilities, but basically it's the same. There are not many possibilities how to prevent these scams. One is money, to pay an offer fee. Which is kind of the easiest and probably most efficient way, but we're still in discussion if we find a better way that we do it without fee. And another way would be proof of work to publish this offer, but that's not very efficient because real criminal scammers could use botnets for spamming, for instance, and also it would be a problem for the usability when you create an offer, you take an offer and you have to wait something like 1 minute or so, then yeah, it would be really bad for usability. And when the proof of work is very low, that it's just 2 seconds, it will not be efficient. So, but there might be other more efficient solutions, like other peers could locally blacklist misbehaving users. So if Alice is creating a lot of offers which are fake offers, and when Bob wants to take the offer, he get rejected because Alice manipulated her software and she's rejecting all the offers, but just for manipulating the price or for hurting the system. Then Bob can ignore her, that he can put her on a local blacklist so that she get isolated from the network, from the messaging, from the peer-to-peer network, and as well that he will not receive any offers from Alice anymore. But that's also probably we have to check out how it's technically possible, but probably it should be possible. And another open question, how efficient it is how easy it will be to create sock puppets. And that's with the, here we come back to the registration. When we don't have a registration fee or a very, very low one, it's very easy to create a lot of sock puppets and use those sock puppets for spams, and then they get isolated after a while or blacklisted. But yeah, as long as Alice can create cheaply new sock puppets, this isolation will not be very efficient. And the bank account has no value here because she could use just any data, because before an active trade is done, this bank account data are not verified and they are just efficient as soon as both users get into the trade, and so that will not help as well. So to use only this protection will lead us that we need a high registration fee, and to prevent fees for the offer and then to be forced to use a high registration fee is not very optimal as well. And another Another point for the for the offer fees is that we have to pay the arbitrators for the passive service, for the arbitration service. So just that the arbitrator is available, that he will give his public key for the multisig is an important service, and we have to pay for this, at least a very small amount. And this offer fee could be easily used as payment for this passive arbitration fee. So that's also a reason why offer fee might be a better solution, like some of the others protection mechanisms. But anyway, even if we use the offer fee, this local blacklisting might be used additionally for certain other cases. Yeah, and another protection against fraud is the limitation of the trading volume. So it will be at the beginning pretty low, something like half a Bitcoin or 1 Bitcoin. So for a real criminal, a scammer, it's not very efficient to use this system. For instance, when he has a stolen bank account, and it's very likely that he only can cash out once, because once he used the stolen bank account, then the bank might discover it, and then it's blocked and so. And when he has just earned half a Bitcoin or 1 Bitcoin, it's probably not worth the effort to get a stolen bank account and the risk what he takes. So these scammers probably will use other possibilities to make their crimes. So a low trading volume will be a natural protection against these scammers, because against bank chargebacks and stolen bank accounts, there is no secure protection. At least one time the scammer can do it, and then he has to create a new register a new account. But yeah, when Bob lost one time 1 Bitcoin, it's enough damage for him. So we have to take care that beside the blacklisting or the fraud report, there are other measurements which helps to lower down this risk at least. And one is this limitation of the trades that will be flexible. So when we see that nearly no fraud is going on, we can extend this limit to 5 Bitcoins or maybe 10 Bitcoins. And there are also other measurements. When we see that there is a lot of fraud going on, then people might use this optional measurements like identity verification or bank account verification against the arbitrator, and then the scammers will have a harder life to find other users who are accepting a trade with somebody who is not identified against an arbitrator. The details about that I've explained in the arbitration video. Don't want to repeat it here, but just want to emphasize that the privacy exposure is only against the arbitrator. We always take care for the privacy that it's not leaked to the public, of course, and it's only leaked to one arbitrator, and this arbitrator gives a certificate, and then the certificate is used in the trade. And certificates does not reveal any of the private information, of the private data. Generally, we have 2 or 3 different levels of communication. One is the publishing of the offer, which is completely public. Everybody can read this data, and the only data which is included is the message ID. That's a public key, which is used for the messaging network. And Bob will use this ID to look up later the IP address when he gets into direct communication for the trade. And the IP address is then later used for the direct communication. So the publishing of the offer is done to the distributed hash table network, and that's completely public. And then when Bob is taking the offer, they're establishing a private communication channel that will be all encrypted, and that's really just between these 2 traders, and nobody else is included in this communication. And of course, as soon as they are starting their trade, they are revealing their private data, which are in the bank account data. So that's the bank account data and the name. The name is necessary because most bank transfers need to add the name as well. And there will be also a contract. That's an important part I forgot before. In the deposit transaction, there will be created a contract which is a summary of all the trade details, and this contract will be signed by both parties, and the hash of the contract will be added to the deposit transaction. The same style like we use for the registration address with op return and a hash attached. With this measurement, nobody can say afterwards that he has not signed or he was not aware of the trade details. With this, the publishing of the deposit transaction, both has signed that they have confirmed to the details in the contract, and the contract will be used only in the case of arbitration. So in case of dispute, the arbitrator will receive the contract in a human readable form, so he will see all the details, and that he can use this as basis for the arbitration. And there is another important part, that the privacy is only leaked to the other peer at that moment as both has paid in their fees. So Alice has of course paid in the offer fees at the moment when she has published the offer, so she's serious that she wants to do the trade, and Bob has to pay in his take offer fee before they really exchange any private data. So this process is a little bit more complicated in reality, and it will include first that Bob will ask Alice if the offer is still available, because it could be that at the same time another trader is requesting this offer, and of course Alice can only execute the offer once, and Bob will wait for the confirmation that Alice will reserve the offer for him, and then Bob has to pay in his take offer fee and send this send the transaction ID to Alice, and then Alice see that Bob really has paid in the fee, so she can be sure that Bob is really interested in the trade, and then they start to exchange their private data like the bank account data and create the deposit transaction together. So that's an important part to see how the privacy is protected until the last moment. So if Bob is just trying to collect data from other traders in some country where the political situation is very aggressive against Bitcoin, he would lose at least a lot of offer fees. But that's a basic limitation of the system. So the system will not work in a country where Bitcoin is forbidden or such an exchange is forbidden, because it would be pretty easy to for the state or for an agency to use undercover agents as a trader, and then the other trader get accused for doing something illegal in this country. So we will not recommend to use the exchange under such circumstances. So that's a natural limitation of the exchange. Another extension point is maybe the bank transfer. It would be great if we find a way to get rid of the bank transfer and to find some other channels, and we might in future extend the possibility to maybe send cash per mail, or to meet person directly, or to meet in person and hand over the money directly, so the banks are not included at all. But for the first version that will not be handled, because it would explode the complexity, and and for most people the bank transfer is the most convenient way to do the trade. So but maybe it might be that in future we find some better ways, and there might be also some integration of payment processors like OKPay, also some companies who are offering open APIs, and which has probably much faster transfer times like classical banks. So there might be some payment processors which fits better to the concept of digital currency, and which has benefits to use for the traders. And we might add some support for integration. We will also recommend the users to not use the primary bank account, because some banks are very aggressive with Bitcoin, and when they find out that their clients use Bitcoin, use their bank accounts for Bitcoin trades, they are blocking the bank accounts. And with a primary bank account where you have to pay all your rents and utility bills, you get much more problems when this gets blocked. So it's much better to open a new special bank account just for Bitcoin trading. There are a lot of companies offering free accounts free of charge, and which are also much faster, like NetTeller or KB or something like that. And there might be also some limitation in some countries. I mean, we have not researched yet much about all the details with different payment solutions in different countries. Like in America, there are some banks where you cannot receive money when you have not registered the sender before. So of course such banks are very hard to use for such a system, and yeah, the easiest way to quit this account and to open a better bank account.